Okay, here we go. Let's get behind the sun there. There we go. That's a little bit better. All right, good afternoon. This is Alex Staniford. I am a web designer and web developer, specializing in breweries and working with WordPress. So I know a lot of breweries out there are using WordPress to basically manage their websites and keep up with all of those things. In addition to that, they're also you guys are doing a lot of Instagram work and things along those lines. So I put my head together and thought about it a little bit and decided that a great way to help breweries out there is to show you guys a little bit on how to take really good photos of beer and give you guys some tips and tricks and ideas on what you can do to do that a little bit better. But before I get into talking about the photos and how to take the photos, I want to talk a little bit about the process that goes in getting the photos of your beer in the first place. I think that if you set yourself up for success by going in a good process with taking your photos, you'll be able to actually save yourself a lot of struggle and be able to be a lot more consistent with posting on Instagram and things like that. Now, I don't want to get too deep into talking about specifically how to maintain an Instagram account on here, but I do want to talk a little bit about this because there's a process to taking really good photos, and sometimes it's spontaneous, but it's not always spontaneous, and some of the really good photos are far from it. So it often makes more sense to kind of take a batch of photos. Basically just take a 6-pack of your beer, any given beer, and basically just experiment with it. Take different pictures and see what you can get with that beer. So I've got my notes here, and I've got myself a smorgasbord of different glassware. And inside of that nice bag is a series of different beers of all shapes, sizes, and colors. So that'll give us a pretty good representation of what we got going on here. So basically what I'm saying about the process is sit down, take a 6-pack of your beer, of any beer that you're trying to take photos of, look at all the different aspects of your brewery, and think about what makes your brewery unique. Because whenever you're really good photos that help your brand are going to be photos that show the character of your brewery, of you. And while your beer is obviously the main character of that, there are a lot of things that go into making your brewery what it is. You guys are more than just beer. So try to reflect that in your photos. So before you take your photos, take your 6-pack, get your camera ready, get yourself set up, look at your brewery, think about what makes it unique and what makes it special, and try to figure out how to incorporate that into the photos that you take of your beer and of your food and all of the things that are featured there. A really good example of this is, let's say you have a chalkboard menu, and it's got a lot of really cool artwork and really interesting colors and things, and that's kind of a part of the character of your brewery. You could take a photo of your beer and have in the background that menu on display in some way, in some cool angle or interesting thing, and that's going to show some of the aspects of your brewery that make it interesting, make it fun. If you've got a really cool back porch or back deck or outside area, take some photos out there. Maybe even record a short video clip of your beer out there and just take in how nice the scenery is. Maybe it's quiet. Maybe outside it's really quiet, it's really relaxed. Maybe you have a fountain and birds are hanging out in there and they chirp, and you get this really nice ambiance. Capture that. Get it in a video. Take your beer outside, set it there, and take that photo, record something, try to get that stuff, look really hard at that, because that's what's going to make your photos stick out above and beyond what other ones are, because ultimately that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to get people interested in coming to your brewery, to your tap room, and the best way to do that is to to capture that character. All right, so now that I've talked about that a little bit, let's talk a little bit about some of the beer and some of the angles and some of the other interesting things with that. So whenever it comes to lighting, whenever you're trying to light a beer really well, and I hope you guys are taking notes because I'm expecting this entire scope to be super dense. So I'm like gonna throw all this stuff at you and not really gonna slow down. So if you have any questions, please just say it in the chat. Otherwise I will just blow right through stuff. I'm trying to maintain a good pace, but help me understand what that is. So anyway, whenever it comes to lighting with beer, if you look at my face right now, you can see that the source of light is coming from here, right? You can see it's coming in, it's casting a shadow on this side of my face. So keep that in mind because that's just natural lighting. That's just from the sun. And oddly enough, the sun is actually that way. But there's a tree right over here, so it's putting a shade on me, and that light over here is hitting me here. Now, as I turn, obviously the lighting on my face changes. That is a very important element of beer because if you put the light behind beer off to a side, especially for lighter beers like a Hefeweizen or like Leinenkugel Summer Shandy or something like that, those kinds of beers will almost glow if you get some light behind them. A great example of this is watch Yingling commercials or look at ads from Yingling. They are masters of that. They really, there's quite a few bigger breweries that do it too, but if you can even take a flashlight, and I've actually done this a lot with stock photos I've taken of beer, where I'll take a flashlight and I'll flash it right behind the beer glass, off to an angle just a little bit, and what that'll do, and you take the photo in a way where you don't see the flashlight, but that light shining directly into that glass will just make that glass glow, and it just really shows off the color of that beer and helps bring focus on that glass. So that's another thing that is really handy with lighting. But without further ado, let's go ahead and open one of these up. So what I'm going to try to do, I don't know how this is going to work, but we're going to give it a shot, is I'm actually going to flip this camera around and kind of just emulate, with my phone, show you the different positions and things and say, that looks like a good photo, that looks like a good photo. So we'll see how it goes. So I'm going to flip it around now. All right, here we go. So let me go ahead and unzip this real quick, get ourselves a beer. And a very important thing that you need to keep in mind whenever you're taking photos of beer, especially, is the last thing you want to do is pour the glass, because you probably want to capture the head of that beer as much as possible, just because that really makes it look good. I got to put you guys down for a second. So before you take the picture, or before you pour the beer, get everything lined up and get everything ready. All right, so let's see what we got in here. We've got Fatheads Headhunter. That might be a good starter because it's kind of light. Leinenkugel's Grapefruit Shandy. Let's start with Fatheads here. Fatheads, for those who don't know, is a Cleveland beer. It's really good, fantastic IPA. If you guys are ever if you happen to be in the trading scene, you're looking for something interesting to try, give it a go. All right, so I'm going to try to position this. Now I'm positioning it here and expecting that I'm going to take the photo because, like we said earlier, we know that the light is coming from over there. So we're going to position it. I've got a Dogfish Head glass here. There's a smudge on it, but obviously you'd want to clean your glass first. So you can see kind of how the refraction, you're getting some light here. So what you're going to do, put this down real quick. I'm going to pop open this beer. All right, so as soon as you're ready to take the photo, get down in there. And notice I got down low. I'm not taking it from up here, I'm taking it from over here. I mean, that's not a bad shot if the car wasn't in the background, but this is generally not very becoming of a beer. So we're gonna kind of get in a little closer there. There we go, and then I focused by tapping, and you'll notice the background got a little blurry. So I'm thinking maybe something like that. So we're getting down underneath the beer a little bit, and we're putting it off to a side. See, this is okay. But this is a lot more interesting, and it's called the rule of thirds, and basically it's a composition technique where people don't put the glass in the middle. So I'm going to just pour down the center of the glass, try to get as much foam as I can. We'll let that build up for a second. I'm just going to try to get this head as thick as possible, so I can get a really good photo. Alright, so you can see already we're getting some interesting stuff there. Now the background is highlighting, the sky is blowing out really bad. So what I would do here is there's a setting on your phone called HDR, well at least on my iPhone rather, there's a setting called HDR and it'll help reduce that. So if you find that you're getting a lot of white blowout in the background, try to do that. But to be honest with you, you shouldn't take photos in the middle of the afternoon in general, and this is honestly the worst time of day to take photos just because the sun is so extreme. But look at this, look how much this glass is glowing right now just because I'm letting that light flood in there. If I take this glass and I move it over here, look at this, it's dull. You can actually watch it just completely light up as I set it there. That is why I'm saying you want the light source to be behind the beer and off to the side just a little bit if you can help it. So we're gonna go ahead and keep pouring this beer. Try to get that head as thick as you want. I mean, I'm not gonna tell you guys how to pour a beer. I'm sure you guys have a good grip on that, but right there, I mean, just like that, you've got a really good photo that just looks really good. And you know, if you wanted to, you could maybe take the bottle in there, set it right aside, and just, you know, just something like that is a great start. Now, this angle, this photo, and all of this is good, but it would be fantastic if you took this kind of setup with this lighting and this area and you applied it where you're able to get some of the character of your brewery. Imagine this. Imagine if you were in this angle and this shot just like this, and in the background off to a side you were able to see maybe a fountain or some kind of feature about your brewery that makes it unique. If you're able to get that in addition to this, you're doing great. So that's, you know, that's one great example. That's with an IPA. Obviously, it's a fairly light kind of, you know, see-through type beer. But I mean, see, just this, it's just crazy the difference. I mean, you can just see as I turn around, you just see how it just fills with light. And you can do that indoors. It doesn't have to be outdoors. I mean, the reason why it's working there is because the sunlight is behind us. However, if you do that where you, if you do that with an indoor scenario with a flashlight or something like that, you're going to be able to get that same exact effect. And it's not that hard to do. And you only need one of those little itty bitty flashlights, the little LED ones that are $10. It's worth every penny. So may as well drink it. Oh, it's good. But now the thing that's interesting is it's the opposite whenever the beer is dark. And that's because a darker beer doesn't have the opacity that you get from an IPA. So what you do is you actually flip it around. So a stout would look better the other way around. This around. We'll go ahead and pour this. This is going to make me cry. I'm going to put this in the cooler just so I have... I'm going to drink this. I'm enjoying this way too much to not. So, alright, so we're going to go ahead and I'm going to take my snifter here and block that guy and go ahead and repeat that process. So we'll go ahead and flip this open. Got Old Leg Humper, which is a porter, Labrador Lager, Founder's Porter. Let's go ahead and do Old Leg Humper just because it's, again, a local brewery and, you know, nothing like supporting a little bit of the locals. Although, Old Leg Humper is my favorite porter, and if I have to waste one, that's a tough one. I'm gonna keep Leg Humper though. So there you go. How about that for an endorsement? All right, so go ahead and pop this open real quick. And block that guy. Alright. Crack this open. Alright, so it's the same exact process. So basically, again, you just do the pour. And obviously with stouts, you got to pour a little more aggressively to get that head up and running. And the snifter is just the worst. You got to be fast with this though, because they fade fast, especially in a snipper. But notice now, you see how it's the opposite. Since the glass is opaque, you want that light to come in and hit it here so that you get some of that shine, and it just makes it really interesting. So you do something like, and even further still. There we go. There we go. So if you actually tap the foam, you're gonna try to get it to focus on the foam. There you go. So there, you can see just like that, you're able to get a more interesting thing. But if I take this stout glass and I put it up in the light, it just doesn't do what that IPA does, because you know it's so dark. So you're just not going to get that. So whenever it comes to lighting, basically it depends on what you want to do. If you want the beer to glow and it's a lighter kind of beer, you probably want it to do that. But if it's a darker beer, the lighting isn't quite as important, but you should be wary of it, because since it's opaque, the light is going to reflect off of the glass itself, and that's going to stick out more. So what you want to do is get the light in front of the glass instead of behind the glass. And yet again, if you just get a flashlight or something like that, you can set yourself up to get that to work really well. Now, let's just debate here real quick. Oh man, that's such a good porter. That's the first porter I've had in a long time, and since winter. I usually drink them in the winter, but God, that's a good porter. Anyway, so there's just two quick examples of how lighting has a big impact on your beer, and you just got to pay attention to those things because it's a big deal. Whenever it comes to being prepared, like I talked a little bit about earlier, you want to take as many photos as you can, and don't plan on uploading the photos you take into Instagram at one time. Plan on taking a bunch of photos. Pick a morning where the sunlight isn't quite so extreme in one direction, because right now the sky is so bright. If you get up, you know, at sunrise, which is, it varies based on where you're at and what time of year it is, but if you get up about 30 minutes after sunrise and you start taking photos, or an hour and a half before dusk and start taking photos, then you'll be able to really capture a lot of the beautiful sunsets and sunrises, and have far more interesting skies that aren't going to blow out quite as much because it's not as bright, but you're still going to get all the benefits of having that sunlight shining into your beer. So definitely do that. Man, these bugs are driving me nuts right now. So there's a couple of good tips. Let's see what else I have going on in my notes here. I want to make sure I do you guys right. Man, I hope this is starting to sprinkle a little bit. That's my luck. Let's hope it doesn't get too bad. All right, so, oh, yeah, of course. And if you are taking photos indoors, get as much light in that building as you can before you start taking photos. Open the windows, open everything you can, and do it then, because otherwise you're going to be robbing yourself of that light. And also pay attention to where the sun's coming in from, because if the sun's coming into all of your windows in the morning, but it doesn't in the evening, you should probably take your photos in the morning in your brewery, or if they come in the evening, vice versa. So pay attention to that. Now, if you and sometimes you can actually use the light, and just getting as much light in that room as you can is going to make it easier for you to be able to capture the other facets of your beer. It's going to be easier to be able to capture those other interesting things about your brewery, because your brewery is going to be lit up as much as it can be, and they tend to be a little dark, so just light it up as much as you can. Also, try to get up and close to your beer and try to create as much distance. If you're trying to make something blurry, if you're trying to make the background look blurry and you really want to put a lot of focus on the beer, get up close and personal to the beer, like this. So you want to get up close and personal to the beer, right? So right up against it, and when you focus, if you can get it to focus with the periscope app, there we go. You'll see that the background blurs a little bit, but the more distance you have between the beer and whatever subject is in the distance, the more blurry things are going to get. So try to create that distance if possible. And also note that the darker it is in the room, the more the more receptive the background is going to be to becoming blurry, generally speaking. So if you're finding that you're not getting enough depth, maybe you should close some windows or dim the lights a little bit and see how that impacts the focus and the other aspects of the shot. But definitely start as light as possible, especially if you're just using your phone. But if you're taking photos in batch, you can use anything you want, any phone you want, any camera you want. You can use an SLR if you want to. You can use a basic one. It doesn't matter. If you are hiring a media company, or me, for example, doing your social media or anything like that, basically all you have to do is take the photos of the beer, send it to that person, and they will they'll take it from there. They'll take the photos, and just keep them. Basically, the goal is to try to have a bank of photos of your beer and your brewery on hand at all times, just as many unique ones as you can, and do it in batches so that whenever the time comes to take photos of your actual, whenever you need to upload something on Instagram or whatever schedule you choose to use, you have those ready to go, and you don't have to run out real quick to take a photo, because whenever you do that, that's whenever your photos get boring, because you're not putting the time and effort into them that they really need, especially with the brewery, where your branding is just so important, and your ambiance, and you're trying to communicate that, so it's important. But if you're listening to this stream, you probably already understand that. Okay, so let's take a look at my notes here, make sure I'm not missing anything. That's a lot of the stuff that I really wanted to cover, was, what I talked about. Let's go ahead and I'll review one more time just to make sure it all makes sense. So first off, lighting is important. If you're lighting a lighter beer, put the light behind the beer. If you're lighting a darker beer, put the light in front of the beer. Whenever you're taking photos, try to put the subject off center in some way, shape, or form. Don't just put the beer in the middle of the picture and take it. Put it in a corner. So you've got like one here, one here, one here, and one here. Those are your four corners, right? Inside of your, it's like a tic-tac-toe board, basically. Where those intersect, try to put your subject in one of those. Let's say I was taking a picture of this beer. There's one corner. I could do it like this. I could do it like this, but maybe even like this, or like this. So look at that. You can even mix and match a little bit. So you can take your stout, do something like this, where you've got, and just like that. So you've got, notice here that you've got this guy in one corner and this guy in another corner. So if you come out a little bit, you can kind of get some interesting angles. Maybe if you just move this in a little bit, here you go. You can see how it gets interesting fast just by putting things off center. Take the time to just look at that, look at stuff like that, and take a bunch of photos instead of just trying to hurry up and take them last minute. So that basically sums up the the quick little chat I wanted to have with you guys. Do you guys have any questions or comments? If not, I want to drink my beer before it gets warm. Let's see. I didn't think so. I mean that's pretty much everything. I guess I can talk a little bit real quick about managing all those photos and uploading them and getting them to Instagram. Why not, as a little quick bonus while I'm here. So after you get all your photos, what I like to do is I'll basically, I personally take photos like this with an SLR. My wife's a photographer, So she has a pretty high-end camera that makes a lot of this easier and really amazing. And truth be told, if you're having trouble with this stuff and it just doesn't click with you, pay a photographer for a session. It'll be a couple $100 probably, maybe more, but just give them a bunch of your beer, and especially look for a journalistic type photographer, because what they'll do is they'll come into your brewery, they'll take your beer, and they'll just they will capture everything that I'm talking about here. They'll capture the essence of your brewery. They'll give you all of that information right there on the spot. So, and I know you brewers are insanely busy, so definitely consider that if this isn't your cup of tea. If it's too much effort to be able to maintain that, pay somebody to do it and just be done with it. So what I like to do is I'll take all the photos that I've batched, that I've taken in bulk, and I'll put them in a folder on my computer, and then I use a tool called Hootsuite, which is basically my primary social media tool that I use to schedule posts, tweets, all kinds of stuff, and Instagram stuff. And what I'll do is I'll upload all of the photos that I want to put on Instagram on there. Whenever I want to post something, on my computer I'll upload it and schedule it from my computer that morning. And basically what will end up happening is a couple hours later, whenever that post is supposed to be scheduled, it'll automatically download the photo to my phone, save the screenshot, give me that description, all the hashtags that I put into it ahead of time, and say, hey, it's time to post this Instagram photo. Do you want to do it now? You say yes, it'll download the photo, it'll attach the photo inside of Instagram, it'll put the description in there, and all you have to do is hit post. So everything is ready to go for you. And if you have a media company that manages all this for you, basically all they have to do is you send them photos, and you tell them, I want to promote this beer during the summer, I want to promote this one during the fall, and just let them take it from there. Maybe you express some kind of specific beer that you want to push at a specific time, but if they have a cache of photos in the first place, you're making their job a lot easier, and they can serve you a lot better. So it's definitely worth the effort of doing something like that. So there you go. I hope this information helps you guys. Let me know, give me some feedback, if this was too much information, too fast, not enough information. I can go deeper into this topic. I can reiterate and help with maybe subjects that I didn't discuss enough. If you're on my email list, I actually sent a couple of resources that relate to this subject a couple of days ago, just before this Periscope, just to give people some extra support things. So, if you're interested in that kind of thing, just go to fillyourtaproom.com. That's fillyourtaproom.com. There's a call to action on there where you can basically fill out a form, and I'll send you a list of things it's actually for event marketing, preparing for events, and how to get an email list built up to promote your business from events. And it basically just walks you through how to do that step by step, and then it gives you a list of a bunch of really good things that you can send to your email list after you collect them. But what my point was basically is that I'm sending resources on there that go deeper into these scopes. I plan on doing scopes like this once a month is my goal. I'm planning on basically doing one scope a month, and then after that I'm going to post an article about the same subject, a summary on Instagram, and a bunch of things. So if you're following me on social media or somewhere outside of Periscope, you're going to see a lot of information as I distill what I present here throughout the next couple of weeks. So I hope this helped. Thanks for your time, guys. If you need anything, don't you ever hesitate to message me. Shoot me a message on Twitter. My username is @AlexStaniford. And I hope to see you guys soon. Thanks.